Well, for the second month in a row, MAGA's favorite podcaster, Joe Rogan, got some nightmare news, and it appears that that nightmare is only getting worse, and it may be a dream come true for liberals and progressives. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, you're probably thinking, what the hell is he talking about? Well, for the second month in a row, the Midas Touch Network, liberal group, which is also comprised of my friend and yours, Adam Mockler, who is killing it. They have topped Joe Rogan again. They have nearly doubled the amount of downloads with respect to podcasts compared to Joe Rogan, the most famous, the most successful podcaster in the world, or at least formerly. This is really good news for not just Midas Touch in particular, but frankly, anybody who opposes Donald Trump, liberals, progressives, people on the left, however you want to describe yourself, the broad democracy coalition. This is really good news at a time when we desperately need good news. So let's dive into it. Anti-Trump podcast nearly doubles Joe Rogan's download. The Midas Touch podcast, a show critical of Donald Trump, received nearly double the number of downloads as the Joe Rogan Experience podcast over the past month, according to Podscribe data. Since the beginning of Trump's second term in office, the left-leaning Midas Touch podcast has topped the charts and is holding firm as the country's most listened to show, indicating a potential shift in what the American people want to hear. And folks, I want you to brace yourselves because we have to address the ecosystem here, the media ecosystem. As we've talked about before, it heavily favors the right, and this might be a sign that the tide is shifting and not a moment too soon. Rogan's podcast has long dominated the charts, but has remained in second place for the second consecutive month. According to Podscribe data, the Midas Touch podcast received 125.6 million downloads in March, an increase of 126%. Rogan's podcast, by comparison, received 64.4 million downloads. Midas Touch was founded by three brothers, Ben, Brett, and Jordy Mycelis, who describe it on the website as a pro-democracy news network. The organization started by creating viral videos and political ads opposing Trump and supporting Democratic candidates. In a previous interview with Newsweek, Brett Mycelis said that beating the likes of Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro is, quote, great, but noted that, quote, what matters most is our impact. Quote, we're proving that pro-democracy voices are not just necessary, but in demand. The American people are rejecting the idea that MAGA is mainstream. The ascent of the Midas Touch podcast comes after a period largely dominated by shows with a conservative or pro-Trump voice, and the likes of Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan, and Ben Shapiro have frequently appeared in the top 10. Trump himself has appeared on a number of these podcasts, eschewing traditional media outlets as part of his successful bid for re-election in 2024. And that's huge, folks. It was dubbed the podcast election. I think that is very apt. And I think Democrats screwed up spectacularly. They should be embarrassed. Their strategists should be embarrassed. There should be a sense of shame and embarrassment that they did not see the trajectory for what it was with respect to at least the media and didn't try to get ahead of it. With all due respect to CNN and MSNBC, they can continue to get interviews and things. I'm not saying to ignore CNN or MSNBC or whatever, or the New York Times. But Democrats, if they want to be successful and competitive in future elections, they need to both emotionally and financially, and in terms of time, invest themselves in alternative media. They have to do it. And right now, the right is surging ahead. But with Midas Touch here, what we are seeing is a potential shift, and Democrats must pounce. Unfortunately for us, Democrats usually struggle at pouncing at opportune moments. So again, just awesome. According to the Daily Beast, this is more than double the listeners that Midas Touch received in February when it first dethroned the Joe Rogan Experience for the top spot. So again, great stuff. Now, let's address the elephant in the room and why this is such a big deal. I said this is nightmare news for Joe Rogan and potentially a dream come true for liberals. But here's why it's so important. Media Matters for America, they put out an analysis about this just a couple of days ago. And again, it just really puts things into perspective. The right dominates online media ecosystem, seeping into sports, comedy, and other supposedly non-political spaces. A new Media Matters analysis found 9 out of the 10 top online shows are right-leaning. As Americans increasingly get their news from online shows and streamers, the influence of this media ecosystems becomes more prominent. And Media Matters has found that the most popular of this content is overwhelmingly right-wing. In a new study, Media Matters assessed the audience size of popular online shows. podcasts, streams, and other long-form audio and video content regularly posted online. To do so, we gathered data on the number of followers, subscribers, and views across streaming platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, Twitch, and Kick, and social media platforms that are used to amplify and promote these shows, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Apple Podcasts does not publicly provide follower counts on its platform, so it was not included in the audience data. This analysis was based on 320 online shows with a right-leaning or left-leaning ideological bent. We found that right-leaning online shows dominate the ecosystem, with substantially larger audiences on both politics and news shows, and supposedly non-political shows that we determine often platformed ideological content or guests. We found key findings. We found 320 online shows, 191 right-leaning and 129 left-leaning, that were active in 2024 and covered news and politics and/or related guests. These shows had at least 584.6 million total followers and subscribers. We found substantial asymmetry in total following across platforms. Right-leaning online shows had at least 480.6 million total followers and subscribers, nearly five times as left-leaning. Across platforms, YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Kick, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, right-leaning online shows accounted for roughly 82% of the total following of the online shows we assessed. Comparatively, left-leaning online shows had nearly 104 million followers and subscribers across 8 platforms, nearly 5 times less. 9 out of the 10 online shows with the largest followings across platforms were right-leaning, with a total following of more than 197 million. The only left-leaning show among the top 10 was What Now with Trevor Noah, which had 21.1 million total followers and subscribers across platforms. Our analysis, which looked entirely at shows with ideological bent, found over a third self-identify as non-political, even though 72% of those shows were determined to be right-leaning. Instead, these shows describe themselves as comedy, entertainment, sports, or put themselves in supposedly non-political categories. And this is huge, folks. Remember, like even Joe Rogan, I don't think for the most part Joe Rogan is an ideologue. He's certainly right adjacent. He's certainly right coded. He is right now beloved by the MAGA base because he is sympathetic largely to where they are. But once upon a time, Joe Rogan endorsed Bernie Sanders. And Joe Rogan has fact-checked, MAGA-aligned politicians and influencers and things like that before. He's just very inconsistent. He is not like a committed partisan, I guess I would say. But there can be no question that his influence has overwhelmingly favored conservatives, right-wingers, and Republican politicians. It's not just Ben Shapiro or the Daily Wire, right? It's these people who are right-coded, period. Andrew Schultz, for example. I mean, you can't count this out. Out of 320 online shows, right-leaning programs categorized as comedy, 15 shows in all, had 117.5 million followers and subscribers, or 20% of the total of the following of all programs we assessed. This category included the Joe Rogan Experience this past weekend with Theo Vaughn and Full Send podcast. Theo Vaughn's another right-coded. I think Theo Vaughn's kind of I don't think he's particularly attentive to politics. I'll put it very charitably. But I also don't think that he's like some hyper-partisan, hard-right douchebag. I think he's just a funny dude who just sits down and has conversations with people. And given that those conversations have been largely with right-wingers, it's just infiltrated and created some brain rot there. But I don't think like he's a dyed-in-the-wool MAGA Republican. And this is another reason why we need to try to be competitive in this space. Again, when you look at this, folks, when you see this, and really this is the chart I was looking for, folks, total following of top right-leaning and left-leaning online shows. The blue are liberals. The blue are progressives. The blue is the left. Think about that. The Breakfast Club, the Young Turks, these are the biggest blue dots. Trevor Noah, the biggest one of all. It's insane. Look at all that red. That's why, I mean, again, just putting a picture to this. Put the freaking picture to it. Folks, I'm sorry. This is something we have to be paying attention to. And if you're attached to a Democratic elected official, or you want to be a Democratic elected official, or you are a Democratic elected official, this is the asymmetry, or one of the many asymmetries that you must work aggressively to correct. Elections will no longer be decided based on what CBS has to say, or NBC, or CNN, or the New York Times. Not to say that they don't have their influence, not to say that they don't do incredibly important reporting. If CNN, the Associated Press, Reuters, if they weren't doing their actual on-the-ground reporting, because I'm not a journalist, I'm a political commentator, this channel wouldn't exist. They are necessary, but they are no longer outcome determinative. This could be. This could be outcome determinative. And Democrats, again, screwed up spectacularly. It's their fault, their error, and they need to tell the world, we got it, we fucked up, we understand we fucked up, and we are working overtime to correct that media asymmetry, that media imbalance by having conversations with Brian Tyler Cohen, David Pakman, Adam Mockler, Luke Beasley, the Midas Touch, Pondering Politics, Jesse Dollemore, Farron Cousins, that they're trying to grow that ecosystem. We have 2 years basically until the next midterm elections, which is very important. And then 2028 is right around the corner. I think if this asymmetry exists in its current form or gets worse, it could have an outcome determinative impact on the election, and it favors the right. And so many institutions favor the right already. Let's not cede this ground. So again, I say this is really good news regarding what's going on with the Midas Touch. This is progress being made for the second month in a row. The momentum is clearly on their side. I hope it continues. Congratulations to them and to Adam Mockler, specifically, friend of mine, friend of the show. And I hope it also proliferates among the rest of the media ecosystem so that we all have a competitive footing against the right wing. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.